Hey folks, today I'd like to talk about the process I went through to make my latest animation, the Overwatch loot box parody. If you haven't watched the animation yet, there's a link in the description and in the top corner of the video. So, let's go. So during this process I learned a lot, I tried a lot of new things, I got more accustomed to the way 3D is used in my animation program, or more specifically the animated 3D camera. It's basically why I bought that software in the first place, to have a freer 3D camera, but it's only now that I feel I have a good reason to use it. Usually I start out with a script and then move on to storyboards, but for processes like this where you're a one-man team, it's not really necessary. So I might skip that for next time. I did skip the script part. I did one sentence notes about it, but I don't think you can call that scripts. So I use Toon Boom Animate Pro 2 for animating. There's a newer version called Toon Boom Harmony, but I bought mine when it was cheap years ago, and now I think they've switched to a subscription service, and I prefer to buy my software. So even though the new version can do a lot more, yeah, I'm okay with this for now. But after the storyboard phase, I started out with creating the environment and the loot box animation. It was fairly simple. It was just a screen grab that I drew over. Kind of cheating, but that was the best way to make it look cool and authentic. One of the main ideas behind this animation was to show what if a 3D game was in 2D, more specifically the loot box opening part of it. And I think it turned out pretty good. The reason I used the Blizzard World map background compared to other backgrounds was I thought it looked cool and had a fairly open sky, and I thought it might be more recognizable with the Blizzard logo for people in the know. But yeah, when I created the background, I wasn't exactly sure of what method I should use, how 3D-ish I wanted it. I knew I wanted it 3D, but I wasn't sure of how to achieve that. I remember I started drawing one of the sides, one of the curves with the grass on, and I did that all in one drawing layer. But of course that wouldn't work because the 3D effect would be lost then. So I quickly came to realize that I needed to draw each element on a separate layer for the 3D effect to work. I think the background and loot box took longer than expected, but yeah, I learned a lot from it. The good thing about the loot box animation is that it's quite reusable. I'm not gonna need to animate it again if I want to do more loot box animations in the future. Although, for backgrounds, I think I would want to mix it up and draw new backgrounds for each loot box movie I make. There's a few times where Toon Boom crashed on me. I think I lost some minutes of work there. It was enough at least to demotivate me a bit that day. But it didn't happen too often, and I had autosave on, so it wasn't too bad. By the way, if you see a weird list full of colors like green and orange and stuff, that's my time management software called Monday.com. It's not free, but I really love it. It's helped me a lot getting more organized. After the loot box animation and the environment, I went over and tried to match the in-scene camera with the in-game camera. And next I went over to actually doing the scenes. I started out with the Torbjorn scene because that was the first one I thought of, and I also thought it was one of the easier ones to do. But in fact I only started recording seriously after I was almost done with Torbjorn's scene, so there's not much footage of it, so I thought it was better to just skip it and go straight to Widowmaker's scene. The process of making each scene is fairly similar to each other, so I don't think you'll miss out on much. But for each scene I basically start out with a rough animation, just quickly draw it with a brush. Then I go over to cleanup, where I get more detail in each pose with a pen. And then finally I add color afterwards. can be a bit tricky in this program to color in. At least you need to close all the gaps if you want to use the paint bucket at least. Which I still think is the fastest way to do it. The good thing about the software is it's fairly easy to see where there are gaps in your cleanup lines. It'll make a little red box where there's a non-connection. After coloring in the drawing, you usually go on to make highlights and shadows on the animation, but for this project I chose not to. I wanted to save time. I do kind of regret not adding shadows to the characters, at least on the floor. I think that would have helped a lot, especially in the widow scene. But speaking of saving time, I'm actually wondering if I should drop the cleanup bit as well and just draw a bit more detailed rough instead. I don't know, I think I need to experiment with that. I'm not the world's best animator or drawer. I think I'm a better animator than I'm a drawer, actually. I want to become better at both things. The best way to do that is to practice, of course. Although, it's weird, sometimes I think if I take a long break and then come back to like animating, I feel like I've sort of leveled up without even practicing. Does anyone else have that experience sometimes? It's kind of weird. Or maybe it's just my imagination. I think if you want to be a better animator, a good place to start is life drawing. It can really help you with the poses and good silhouettes, and also just watching and analyzing other people's animations. But then again, I'm no expert, so talk to your animation teacher instead. I've worked with lots of awesome, really great animators in the time I had at the film school. It's one of the huge benefits from that school. You get a huge creative network. You meet so many awesome, talented people. A general problem I found out that I had was the background was getting quite noisy. It was getting pretty distracting to look at. You couldn't really pay attention to what the characters were doing. And I found a solution kind of by accident. I was doing cleanup on Baptiste, I think it was, or Widowmaker, and I needed to have the brush strokes less visible, so I lowered the opacity on the brush strokes, or more specifically, I lowered the opacity of the color, which affected every drawing that used that same color, which in turn also affected all the background drawings. So all the line art on the backgrounds had their opacity reduced, which turned out pretty well, I thought. It was a lot easier to see what the characters were doing in the foreground. There's still a few places where I think it's distracting, but in these sorts of projects I'm not that much of a perfectionist, so I'll let it go. I think I had the most trouble with the Farah scene, mostly because of the camera work. I made a few mistakes there that slowed me down. I started out animating the character itself getting bigger, and that caused some problems because I also had the camera itself go closer. But I should have realized earlier that I just needed to animate her in one size, one scale, and then let the camera do all the zooming for me. To start with, I wanted to animate the slow-mo explosion in the final seconds of the Farah scene, but yeah, that was just going to be too much animation and too much work. I don't think it would have been worth it in the end. In the beginning, I was unsure of how exactly I wanted the final look of the movie to be. If I wanted to look closer to the original 3D, or I wanted to make it totally, basic in 2D. And of course, for professional setups and for clients and stuff, you would want to know that look ahead of time. But for personal projects like this, it's, I think, better to just get started and work it out as you go. At least I feel more productive that way, I think. The Genji scene was pretty straightforward. I thought of doing the spray icons myself, designing my own ones, but yeah, I decided against it. I added the cheer sound when the chest falls down to better illustrate that it was actually a good thing that he sliced those damn worthless sprays up. Also, everyone wants to cheer if they got 3 legendary chests. After the Genji scene, I think that was the last one I did. Yeah, it was. I went to my editing software to put it all together. I used DaVinci Resolve. It was the first time I used that software. Really awesome. I can really recommend it. First of all, it's free. That's an important fact. Unlike my older editing software from Adobe. And I think it's not only free, but it's also in general better than Adobe. At least Premiere. I mean, you can do a lot more effects and stuff in After Effects from Adobe, but for this I didn't really use that, or I didn't need it. I did add a bit of effects to give it a bit more of a polished look. I color graded a bit of the animation in the background, match a bit better, taking into account, okay, they're outside. It's sunlight, it should be a bit lighter here. Also adding a few glow effects here and there. Pretty basic polishing stuff. I was afraid the screen recording software would slow down the editing process, so I decided not to record much of that. If you would like to see more of that process, let me know, and I'll see what I can do for future projects. I don't have much more to share about the process, but I'll let the video play out so you can watch it in full. By the way, if you felt the recording was going too fast or too slow, let me know and I'll try to fix it for next time. Yeah, basically that's it. That's the steps I took to create my animation. I hope this little behind the scenes was interesting for you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Until next time, bye bye.